Hi everybody, my name's Tom Chesterton. I'm the Managing Director of Tonic. We're a brand consultancy. We work with a lot of people in the talent environment, and one of the things that's always really struck me is that no matter how many conferences and events I go to, I never run out of interesting people to chat with. There's an awful lot of people who do different things within the talent environment, and everybody's got something to add. So what we wanted to do with TonicWith, which is our new series that you've found, is to have conversations with the people who we're really impressed by and really excited by having the opportunity to work with sometimes. And today is the very first episode of that, so thank you very much for coming along and watching. The person we have with us today is Kirstie Kelly. Kirstie is one of the founding team behind Launchpad, a fascinating person, and really excited to have the opportunity to talk with her for half an hour or so today. So, hi Kirstie.
Hello Tom, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you very much. Thanks so much for coming along today.
Thank you. I'm going to try and keep the smile up for the whole session, just to brighten everybody's day.
Good luck. I think you're doing very well so far. So, what's always interested me most about the people who I meet is that there's always a person behind the professional, if you like. So maybe you could start just by telling us a little bit about you. What's your background? How did you find your way into talent?
And I'm glad you said found my way into talent. I'd like to say that it was a calling. It became a nasty habit after a number of years. But I actually started out my career in the hospitality sector, and a long time ago trained as a chef, among other things. Studied hospitality management, probably because I loved staying in hotels and suddenly realised that working in them was different. But it gave me a sense, I suppose, the underpinning principle that a great service culture was really important. And I've taken that on my journey through different sort of industry sectors. I worked for a really cool startup about 150 years ago, an IT consultancy that I'm probably now trying to emulate with Launchpad. But then actually stepped across into recruitment. Wandered through the recruiting world, taking on lots of different roles and responsibilities. But if you cut me in half, I'm a brand marketeer by trade, really, if you really dug deep.
I think the best people normally are, Kirstie.
Absolutely. I thought a bit of flattery was necessary there for you, Tom.
I hear that you did a long bike ride across Cuba just recently as well.
Oh, you mean the real me? Yeah, no, I do daft cycle rides. I cycled across Cuba for Women versus Cancer. I've trekked Cambodia, trekked Nepal, and cycled across Cambodia for children in care internationally.
Wow.
And then underneath a layer of brand marketeer, if you dig deep, I'm a hugely competitive dressage rider.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that at all.
There's a few other things I'll drop in, see whether you realise you don't know me at all, Tom.
Okay, that sounds intriguing.
That sounds cryptic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so there's lots of different things that make you the person, I guess. So tell us a little bit about what motivates you. Why do you do what you do? Because there's lots of different things that are happening there in your life. It must be difficult to juggle all those things at one go.
Oh, Tom, I've only given you a little shaving of what goes on in the place that's called Kirstie World. What motivates me? Really simple, actually, and probably why I told you that service is the core of my being. I have a really strong sense of what's right and fair and genuine. It sounds terribly philanthropic. I am working on world peace at the moment as a sideline. Okay. But I just believe that in everything that we do and feel, then being genuine and clear and fair and communicating well, I really do actually genuinely believe it makes a difference. I've seen a lot of businesses over the years try and overcomplicate, and it's those that keep it simple and have high standards that make a difference, and that's probably in the core of my being. Okay.
Do you find that, I mean, that must be that's a really motivational thing to take into your own business as you build Launchpad?
Yeah, Launchpad really has given Will and I the chance to do everything that we've learned well. That's our mantra, really, is build a business that we're absolutely proud of, that the relationships we build are really as secure as we believe, and the service and product that we sell. I want to say rocket fuel, but isn't that awful branding when your company's called Launchpad?
Thinking about your logo, yeah, very good. Connection there.
Forget the bit about being a brand marketeer. No, seriously, I think it's about doing a job well, and we really, really care about the businesses that trust us enough to open their doors and show us how they're hiring people and retaining people. And that's a huge, I'm always very excited about what I see.
Okay. So do you, I guess we're going to talk a little bit about Launchpad in a minute or two, but what was the process that got you into a place where you thought Launchpad was the thing that you wanted to do?
I had always felt that that working in this world was one, it was really exciting, and that there was a part for technology to play, but it had to be rethought. So I think I first saw video screening 15 years ago, thought one of the first products to market, what great concept, what atrocious technology, and then left it for 15 years. Will had created the first phase of the product, and I met him when I was running a brand consultancy myself. One of my customers asked me to meet him and see whether I thought it was any good, and I had a Victor Kiam moment. You're probably too young to know who Victor Kiam.
No, he bought the company, right? Something to do with razors or something.
Absolutely. I just thought this was the right time. Beautiful product, and I really like the whole ethos around how to hire people in an intelligent way and be able to communicate with them genuinely, which is back to the core of who I was. So it was that Shazam moment where you suddenly think, hold on a minute, all that I ever believed this could be a way for us to help recruiters do that well all the time.
Okay, so you're talking about almost it's that Shazam moment, that aha moment that really kind of makes you realise that you've got something that could really make an impact in terms of the way that I guess you live your life, but also the way that talent is communicated with and engaged with as part of the recruiting and retaining process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did it all go to plan from the word go? Or was it been ups and downs?
There have been plenty of ups and downs, more ups and downs actually. I suppose I came into this world believing that branding, I said to you, I'm a brand marketeer by, cut me in half. Branding isn't something that's just applied to consumers or candidates or employees, or even, it can be applied to an individual. But for me, it's really about sort of how you enter this world and the effect you have. That again sounds very philanthropic, but with building a technology business, trying to have those bigger conversations sometimes, isn't the case. We've got to do a job here. So starting out and building a team and trying to hire people that emulate all of that premise has been really fun. You say something and hope that everybody gets it. Luckily, I've got a team around me now that really do. So I suppose we've taken our concept and applied it to our own business. Like you, Tom, we've got to be brilliant at this, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. To stand out and to get any traction at all, you've got to have something different to offer. And whether that's the personality of the people who are involved, or whether it's the, as you say, the quality of the product, absolutely. There's got to be something that makes you differentiate.
Yeah, and it's also about having people around you that get it as much as you do, that are as strongly motivated by doing the right thing and a good job. So, and I'm very good at convincing people, and sometimes I shouldn't convince them too hard. So, for me, the thing that makes the real difference is having interesting people to work with a strong sense of imagination, and I guess that level of creativity is critical for all businesses as they're growing, right? It is. But bottom line, we're a technology business too. So it's if you heard some of the fabulous conversations Will and I have, and anybody that's met him, we're made of very different stuff. So he's about the numbers, I'm about the creative piece, and we collide beautifully in the middle, which makes it work.
So we talked a little bit about there being ups and downs, I guess. I'm really quite interested in ups, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But if you think about some of the things that you learn from a talent perspective and from the way the business has developed, what have you learned? Have you had any downs that have given you any major insights or learnings that you can share with us?
I started out life training people, actually, training sales teams and training customer support teams. And I've gone back to being an educator. You can meet a business and know that you can have a positive impact, but you've got to take people on that journey. So I wouldn't say it's a down, but sometimes you can see that you can have a big impact. But if they don't see it too, then there's not a lot you can do about it. So you become an educator. So I think it's about adaptability, Tom. That's it.
Okay. No, fair enough. Choosing your battles and fighting the right ones, right?
Sometimes.
Okay. What's the flip of that? What's the if you think about the accomplishments that you've had during your career and with Launchpad, what's the thing that really stands out as the thing you look back on most fondly and celebrate?
I think going back to what you talked about in terms of creativity, when I've allowed myself to be most creative is when I've had the greatest impact. And keeping it simple. I'm not going to, in the recruitment sector, we turned a business around that was a loss-making business into a seriously profitable business by doing the basics really well. And actually it was about practicing what we preached in terms of highlight people, develop them, give them clear targets, motivate them and get them involved in the process. I love the fact that you can read 1,000 books, but just doing it makes the difference.
Yeah.
So you made a comment at the beginning, how do I fit everything in? Just get on with it.
Yeah, okay. No, fair enough. That is the trick about almost everything, is that you can be the most educated, the most informed, but unless you actually get your shoulders to the wheel and do some work, nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be based on facts. It's got to be with a bit of sense check. The best entrepreneurs are those that never take a real risk. They jump, but they pretty much know that there's going to be a safety net there.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love to see how people give this sense of being dramatic, but actually it's very considered.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I guess there's a nice segue then into the world of talent and looking at employers in terms of some of the challenges that they face. And I guess you could draw the parallel between the mitigation of risk from an entrepreneur's perspective and maybe the way that talent acquisition specialists or HRs that are really focused on recruiting need to be able to take balanced risk when they're trying new things or trying to be innovative or trying to make their own niche within the world of talent acquisition. How do you see that? What do you think? What advice would you give to employers who are in that position, and what do you think the biggest challenges are going to be for employers over maybe the next 5-6 years?
Let me answer the first question there, and I'm lucky enough to have some really interesting conversations. I said that at the beginning. Really interesting conversations with recruitment leads who have big jobs to do. They have a big corporate to expand along with the shareholder expectations. And when I talk to recruiters about their big ideas, they always melt a little when I say, but it's business as usual, right?
Yeah.
And so I suppose that's really where I think the greatest challenge comes, is how they keep an eye on the short-term business as usual, but not lose a view of the skyline and the power of the possible, and rethink this whole thing called recruiting. I think the biggest challenge, we know there's a war for talent. We know that retention is top priority. I think there are two things that are going to be, those that get this will be the ones that fly. One, those that find a really smart way of addressing quality of hire metrics properly. Yeah. Don't think about recruiting as a finite action. It's about engaging people, onboarding them beautifully, making them successful, and making sure their existence with the business is fruitful for both parties.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And then the second thing, that's all very well, but a recruiter is often taught to recruit and hire, and they may have HR skills, but suddenly we're expecting them to be marketeers, data analysts, strategists. So the people, I think, in our world that will really fly are those that get that complexity of the role and tool themselves up and learn now.
Okay. Both really interesting points. So if you were looking at the metrics piece, because clearly metrics are very important in terms of making business case, but also, I guess, being perceived more favourably within the business that they're working in. So if you look at the standard metrics of time to hire, cost of hire, attrition rates, all of those things, do you think are they the only areas that people should be looking at, or do you think that people need to be looking at different metrics and different sets of metrics?
Definitely. I mean, if you take this would tap into your world, the world of consumer marketing. Then, if you look at the sort of metrics they consider to identify whether the business is moving in the right direction, ultimately it's about customer satisfaction. It's about net promoter scores, isn't it? And I think we should take a similar sort of view when we're looking at hiring metrics. It's really about fulfillment, of course. Are you getting enough people of the right capability through the doors? Are they satisfied? But satisfaction has to mean, satisfied because they're fulfilling a job they need to do, and from the business perspective, delivering the return they need. This isn't about becoming friends. So I think, to answer your question, then the metric shouldn't just be about cost efficiency. It should be about results focus, and every business is going to be different.
Okay.
So don't just crunch data for the sake of it.
No. Okay. So you hear lots of noise, I guess, about big data and the impact of data, but your message would be to tread carefully, I guess, then in that case, and choose the right metrics to report on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's similar sort of ethos to the rest of my world, which is keep it simple.
Yeah.
And make sure it's meaningful. But actually, don't present 1,000 pieces of data if actually your shareholders or your CEO or your MD is interested in something very different. And often the most senior people in any business, who generally is an entrepreneur, is actually very clear-sighted. They know they need great people who have the talents to deliver a profit for a business.
Okay. And think about the other part of what you were talking about. So that's about talent acquisition specialists being, having a much broader skill set now than they've ever had to have in the past. I guess one of the things that it's easy to think of is that skill set doesn't exist within people. But as you said, the people who are succeeding now and standing out are the people who are either naturally gifted in one of those areas, either marketing or in terms of how you report back to your business. But if you're just starting out on that journey of trying to improve the capability that you have or the business has, what advice would you give to an employer in that context? What would you do? If you were in that space, what would be the two things you'd focus on?
I think you scaled it down with two things I'd focus on there, Tom. I was just about to
more if you like.
25. I think first of all, just have a learning mindset, take responsibility for building up your portfolio of experiences and capabilities. Talk to everybody, listen to those that have got it right, listen to those that have got it wrong, form some opinions. You don't just have to go to university to learn this stuff. So that's the first thing. Be curious, I think, is a really important one. Be curious about everything you're doing. Why are you doing it? What are the results? And how is that going to impact on people around you, whether that's your candidates or your team or your business? Okay. And in fact, that alone, I think, would be, that should get the recruiters I meet that really get it are those that just think laterally as well as literally.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Good insight. Appreciate that. So if you think about, so what we were talking about there was kind of the next 5 or 6 years. If you look at maybe the more immediate future, and you are an employer, you clearly pay a lot of attention onto that, both those areas we were talking about. But is there anything that stands out as being an immediate area of focus that you think UK PLC and talent acquisition recruiters need to focus on right now?
Yeah, I mean, bring it right down to the here and now, then we're seeing talent, in inverted commas, or those job seekers really having a very different view of a career. So it's almost a portfolio approach now. People are far less concerned about taking a project or a short-term assignment or an interim role, and they enjoy that. And so I think that recruiters need to think differently. I think that the premise of outcome-based hiring is a really interesting one. I think very soon the day will be gone when you'll be hiring for an explicit role. It will be really about the objective and the project outcome. So I think if recruiters can start thinking now about that and about how they'll evidence strengths rather than past experience, they'll start to meet people that are going to be very successful in their business.
Great. I think really good insight. I think that that perspective on the world of moving away from permanent roles that are fixed for even a small number of years and moving to something that's a bit more ambiguous, a bit more flexible is kind of good foresight. Yeah. And really interesting to see how that develops actually, and at what speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love to see that some of the businesses, for example, in the retail space, really get that. They know how to how to sort of foresee the talent requirements, and they're considering it now, and that's really exciting for me.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess one of the things that's going to have a big impact is, well, two things really, hopefully. One is, what's the reputation of this organisation that I'm thinking about joining? Very few people will be actively job seeking. We know that the average stat for any particular given group is 10% of that group are looking for a job at any one point. So there's another 90% of people who are not actively looking. So the reputation of a business, when they're approached and when they're communicated with for the first time, is going to be tremendously important in terms of whether somebody is interested. But I guess the other side of that is, what's the experience as a candidate going to be? And whilst my focus is on how do I build reputation, I'm thinking that Launchpad fits in really neatly into that. How do we treat people in a way that they come to have expected as a consumer, and how does that then play out in terms of the recruiting space? I'd be interested to get your view on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely believe that it's going to get harder, not easier, for recruiters to really engage with people. And I say really, in my head, I can see big block capitals, for really. Yeah. We recognise that job seekers often will mass apply for roles, and you'll see high volumes of applications for big brands. But a lot of people deselecting themselves from the process really, really quickly based on the behaviour of that brand. I think if recruiters can start to really unpick their own behaviour, the sort of evidence they're searching for, but the way they do that with candidates, and yeah, don't be afraid to automate a process. I think technology definitely has a place, but consider it, stand in somebody else's shoes, consider it from a candidate's experience. It's, again, a simple thing, but when it's done well, can have a huge impact.
Yeah, okay. And so if you think about what Launchpad is doing right now to help that improve, I guess, what would you think the next 12 months holds in terms of where you're going to be focused and what that's going to mean in terms of making that whole experience of being a candidate better?
But fundamentally, Launchpad is a communication tool that uses video. First and foremost in the recruiting space, but increasingly throughout the employee journey. And when I say about using video, it's about transmitting messages through video and receiving information through video. And we'll be doing more of that. So for us, it's about building out the workflow, guiding recruiters and HR professionals in terms of how they do that. The message is owned by clever people like you, Tom. For us, it's about giving actually a non-technical experience. That you can digest video through YouTube. I sit on the train on the way home and catch up on Facebook with all those fabulous video clips of animals being saved. It make me cry every time. But really it should be an uncomplicated and often non-technical process. Make it really easy to digest, easy to interact, and for the recruiter or the business themselves to get the information they need and make judgments. And it's our job to power all of that. Okay,
cool. It's going to be exciting times. I'm going to, I've only got a couple of questions left for you, but this is a real tough one, actually. If you were looking at the current makeup of, what employers are doing to bring talented people into their organizations, can you give us a couple of examples of people who are doing it really, really well and why? I'm putting you on the spot, I'm afraid, but it's and it is a tough one to answer.
Okay, I've got two examples right now. One which is a customer of mine, and one which is from a presentation I saw in Amsterdam recently. Okay. So in Amsterdam, I think the brand was called Zuba.
Okay.
They make shoes, apparently. Okay. But the young lady stood on stage and gave a presentation that, to begin with, the audience thought was going to be really just a little bit cheesy and anecdotal. When somebody starts with their vision and value slide, you know it's always going to go downhill from there. However, she then told the story of how they brought all of that alive and the fine detail they applied to hiring processes. This wasn't a small business, this was fast growth. But the fine detail they applied to every stage of a candidate and employee's life with that business. And the net result was that they had a hugely engaged workforce of extremely dynamic people. They were switching off all attraction methods that week because they found that actually people were coming to them. They were, that lovely experience of having thousands of people apply to you without needing. But the great thing was that it was people that they wanted to hire because they weren't just selling the dream, they were selling the reality. So they were making it very honest, genuine, but extremely valuable and beneficial. So
wow. Well, it would be really interesting to find out who they were. And maybe if we put the URL to that company in the notes for this,
yep,
that would be quite helpful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure it's Zubug, but I'll send the presentation. And then the second is a customer of ours. We've been working with Microsoft with the graduate team, who are a really smart bunch of cookies. Microsoft have an interesting challenge that their brand is governed, if you like, by the states. Mm-hmm. Their whole marketing message is in some cases quite corporate, yet they're asking graduates to really jump through hoops in terms of what they do, how they do it, and even where they live. Yeah. So I've seen the Microsoft team reinvent their whole approach, take away some of the barriers to entry that around qualifications and the criteria they use to bring people into the process. They've been one of the first to really embed strengths-based interviewing into their process using CAP, and they've used video screening as a way of assessing the output from strengths-based interviewing. Not the first to use strengths-based, but really to push it through their end-to-end process. The results are really interesting and exciting. They've shifted the gender bias that often happens in that world. They've far improved their engagement metric and also their fulfillment for the grad roles. But the bit that I love is that they've got a really human touch to all that they do, and they want to be personalities actually in front of graduates and bring the brand alive, and that to me is just perfect.
That sounds like a wonderful thing. I guess the challenge for Microsoft is, as you say, exactly that. You know, they're a business that has things like Xbox and lots of cool technology, but most people bear in mind, think about them as being the people who provide their desktop,
Yeah.
and it's moving them from being that utility to being that cool business that they're trying to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love to see a team of people that are changing and refining it all the time.
Grand. So I want to just say thanks very much for spending some time with us today. Have you got any last words of kind of inspiration you'd want to share? You know, it'd be interesting to know about what your plans are for the next 12 months. Are you going on any more trips? Are you going on any more expeditions?
I need to qualify for the regional championships in dressage at medium level. So that's my personal quest.
Wow.
I fancy the Galapagos Island, Tom, but I'm not sure whether I can blend that into charity fundraising. Actually, for me personally, over the next year, here we go. Here's something you don't know about me. I'm a trained psychotherapeutic counsellor and hypnotherapist.
Okay.
And so, actually, I think the next year is going to be a bit about increasing the impact I have in that space. But for the business, for Launchpad, and for this industry sector, I think there's all sorts of great quotes, and I read them all. But for me, it's the one mantra is about stay curious. My favourite time is when I meet an 80-year-old who has a sparkle in their eye and a dozen questions to ask. I want to be that 80-year-old.
Yeah, I know some of those, and they are absolutely the people I want to end up being as well. Completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if people want to get hold of you, how do they do that?
So you can find pictures of me on our website. Actually, they videoed us. But launchpadrecruits.com. We've got an office in Farringdon. Give me a call at the office. You'll find all the details on the website, and my mobile number's on there as well. Ask me anything. I'll always answer honestly.
Great. Thanks, Kirstie. So listen, once again, thanks very much for being our first guest today. Really, really appreciate your humour and your candour, and I love the story that you tell, so thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And for everybody else, we'll see you next time.